In this Conversations on People and Culture, I'm joined by Sean Blunt, Director at Certitide Australia. And we're going to give some practical tips on team development in a project environment. Sean, welcome.
Hi, Campbell. How you doing?
Yeah, really good and delighted to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
By way of starting, can you tell us a little bit about what Certitide Australia does?
Yeah, sure, I can. Look, Certitude Australia is a organisational development company. We focus on developing up mainly individuals that contribute to wider organisations. So we look at developing their skills in the various specialties that they focus on. One of our core areas is project management. So we look at developing up project team members and project managers so that they can contribute to their organisational goals and achieve success, deliver their project.
Yep, fantastic. So I'd love to get your thoughts, and a way of framing the conversation today is what's the relevance of the team development cycle as described by Dr. Tuckman in project management?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Campbell. Dr. Tuckman looked at this team development cycle and introduced it into our vernacular way back in the 60s. So it's been around forever. It's been around for a very, very long time. And look, fundamentally, it hasn't changed. There have been various incarnations of it. There are different stages that have kind of been manipulated and massaged, but it's really the same. And it's been so consistent throughout all team development, throughout all workplaces, not just projects, that it's really a core to what our leadership is being trained to recognize. In a project environment, one of the first things to think about is that project managers these days have very, very little say on their team composition. In a perfect world, a project manager will go out and they will select their team specifically for the role or the project. Now, these days, project managers are often from an organization. They operate within an organization's constraints. So it means that their project teams are often thrust upon them, and they often have very little say in exactly the kind of people that they're getting within the team. And this is a really challenging environment. We see this across all organizations now, and most organizations, especially project organizations, are moving towards that balanced matrix project structure. So it means that project managers need to focus more about developing their team rather than selecting the individuals. I think that's quite an important concept to really understand at first. When in this project, this matrix structure, we find that actually having a well-performing team is so important. I mean, projects are delivered by people. Let's be honest about that. Projects, doesn't matter how technical or complex your project is, projects are delivered by people. And that people, if it's not a well-performing team, right, that project is going to struggle to deliver on its goals and on its scope.
Really interesting. And there's more of these soft skills now. It's not just about the project and writing documents, but the project manager needs soft skills.
You couldn't be more on the money there, Campbell. We focus too heavily on some of the hard skills in project management, and they have their place. And I won't deny that for a second. We teach a lot of those hard skills at Certitude. But the one thing we find, once project managers reach that management level and are going on in their career to a program manager or a project director level, those hard skills become much less important, and we need to focus on developing those soft skills, those leadership skills, the stakeholder engagement, the communication skills. It's those skills that set a good project manager out amongst the head of the pack.
Yeah, the differentiator. No, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. So that leads me to my next question. So what can a project manager do to help the team through the cycle?
Yeah. Look, first and foremost, they can learn about it. And this, as I said, this cycle has been around for years. It's been a very, very long time. And we often focus on teaching those hard skills. We focus on teaching project managers how to manage time, how to manage scope, how to manage risk. And they're all very important. But we probably don't spend enough time learning about team development and team dynamics. So if project managers can learn to take a step back from their project and their team, and have a look at what's happening, become situationally aware, look at the relationships that are forming, look at how people are behaving in the workplace. We often get so caught up, and project managers are the worst at it. And I've been a project manager as well, so I can be critical of this. We get so caught up in project operations that we forget to take a step back and have a look at what's happening. We succumb to dealing with the urgent at the cost of the important, and it's a really, really big challenge. Project managers need to plan for their team to go through this team development cycle. This team development cycle is so common that every team goes through it. Project managers should plan for their team to go through it. It is a surety that they will go through it. And good strategies can be put in place to help deal with the various stages of the development cycle.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mention about planning for possible pitfalls. I mean, the reality is we know that the team will go through these cycles.
Yeah.
And so we must be prepared or be proactive to, ensure that it doesn't become an impediment, but in fact, positively influences. And so how have you seen the 5 stages of Tuckman's team development model manifest in real world project scenarios? And picking up on your point, are there any specific challenges associated with each stage?
Yeah, look, I've seen it a lot, Campbell, and actually in every project I've worked on, we've seen the project teams go through these 5 stages. Unfortunately, I've got lots of bad examples. And that's sort of why I want to have this conversation, because I want to draw attention to it so that we can learn from it. I do have a positive example, though. It was a government project I was working in about 5 or 6 years ago. I won't give specifics of the project in a bid to protect the innocent. But one of the things, we were pulling together a new team for this project. We were all from very different areas. Some of us were contractors. There were government employees as part of the project. There were uniformed members of the military as part of the project. So very, very diverse range of users. And we knew that there was going to be some challenges going through that process. I was a project member, so I wasn't the project director, but we did have a very good project director at the time. And they recognized very early the importance of people. And as we were going through that team forming stage, one of the strategies they put in place was to continually reinforce why we were there. What are we doing? And what's the outcome? Not just what's the output, but what's the outcome to the organization? So we had a number of presentations through that team forming stage, which went on for a number of weeks, probably a couple of months. We had a number of presentations from our end users on the project to articulate to us exactly why it is we are here and what impact we're going to have on their life. And that was really important. That helped us as a team come together initially, but also it creates that common goal or that common purpose we talk about a lot in project management. Regardless of the methodology, we talk about that common purpose and common goal. So that was quite wise of the project director to recognize that, and definitely motivated us to start working really hard on this project. Help the team itself move into that norming stage where we were all specialists in different areas, and we all got to work in those different areas. We started to put all of our energy in the project. We knew why we were there, but we were still working on our own. We were realistically working in our own little silos, in our own bubbles. We weren't quite a team yet. We'd meet the definition of a group, a project group. And as predictably as the life cycle goes, a few weeks later, we started entering that storming phase. We started to see conflicts emerging. We started to push each other's boundaries. The best I can explain it, if you were watching it, we just started to get on each other's nerves. And, if you've ever been in an environment like in a workplace or even in a family, you just started to push each other's buttons. The tension started to grow. There was an increased amount of talking behind people's backs about the other people. So really, we were on a path to that dysfunction or that toxic environment. And we were, as I said, we were lucky enough to have a good project director that had a good nous for people skills, and they recognized that. They recognized that quite early, and they started to realign where we were going. But they knew that we were going to have this conflict. And this is the important thing about Tuckman's model. The storming phase, it's predictable and it's normal. We shouldn't try and avoid it. Avoiding conflict in the workplace is this fallacy that everyone's going to, sing and dance and get along together. All it breeds is an unimaginative workplace.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's 2 aspects there. One, just to pick on that last one, if there isn't some kind of positive conflict, then people really aren't pushing the boundaries, and there's missed opportunities. And I think the second thing, that is a really clear explanation and illustration of the use of the soft skills by the leader to ensure the delivery of the project. That's
Yeah, look,
fantastic.
he did really well, and he didn't have to do too much to help us through that phase. It was the little things. It was the we had a number of social activities outside of the project that allowed us to explore each other and explore about our team members on a more personal level, understand their motivators, because you need to understand why your team members are at work. Whilst you're all working towards that common goal, everyone's at work for a different reason. They're at work to earn money for their family, or they're at work to save for their retirement, or whatever it might be. It's exploring those motivators, and I think that really helped.
100%, and I think it's that acknowledgement that everyone has different primary motivators, and an awareness of the importance of the individual to the team.
Yeah, I agree, Campbell.
I just want to pick up on one of the aspects that you spoke about earlier, and that is that given the dynamic nature of projects with team members, coming together from diverse backgrounds, remote locations, different locations, how can a project manager tailor their approach to ensure each stage of the team development cycle is effectively navigated and optimized for project success?
Yeah, it's a good point, Campbell. Look, it's getting ever so difficult to manage teams effectively now, especially with our new environment where we're going to this distributed workforce. We're not all co-located. We're not in the same room. People are working in their own, in their own home office environments, or their own, if they're contractors, in their own office environments. It's becoming a real challenge, and I think we need to try and explore different ways we can do it. The fact is that staff turnover is always going to exist in projects, and we need to be reflective of that. We're always going to have new members come in. We're going to have older members leave. This is where I think routine becomes really important. So projects are built on routine. We schedule routine team meetings. I think everyone watching this would have been in a project where we've had a routine weekly meeting, or a routine monthly meeting, or even your routine stand-ups. We need to build team development in as routine as well. We need to have it as a core part of our project, so there's the rhythm about it, and we can adapt as we get new people in, and we lose some of our current members. We need to continue that team development process, integrating them into the team. So we need to actually invest, not just a one-off. So team development isn't a one-off; it's a routine thing. And that's quite important. We often forget about that. And I'd probably, that's the key thing I'd talk about in these dynamic nature of the projects, is that building that routine in is going to help us continue the team development throughout the project lifecycle, and continue trying to maintain as much as possible the team in that performing area of the model.
That's fantastic. And it sounds to me like, as project managers, we are very focused on process. And by being aware that team development not only happens, but we actually have a framework of the stages that it goes through. If the project manager proactively plans for those stages, pressure tests or temperature tests where the team is at those regular check-ins, then they can really, drive successful outcomes.
Yeah, look, you're right. And as project managers, we're always taught to plan. Right? We spend so much of our time planning, and any project life cycle spends, a good percentage of its project life cycle in that planning phase. But do we plan for team development enough? And I think that's the key thing we forget, that we often exist within an umbrella of organizational policies and procedures. So if you're working within a larger organization, we just assume as part of our planning phase that our staff are going to be managed in accordance with company X, Y, and Z's policies and procedures. But do we really ask, are they adequate? Are they going to meet our needs? Because those policies and procedures are there really to meet the bare minimum standard the company needs to comply to. Project managers need to take that, and they need to then put in the next layer of team development activities. They can't just assume that this umbrella protection is going to provide them everything they need, and if the team fails, it's the organization's fault. Well, it's not. It's the manager's fault. You need to invest in it. You need to plan for it right at the beginning of the project. You should be planning for, all right, how am I going to manage scope? How am I going to manage time? How am I going to manage risk? How am I going to manage stakeholders? And how am I going to manage my team throughout the project lifecycle? And that's not just hiring and firing. That's the least of your worries, because they're often, those policies and procedures are often set by the organizational governance structure. It's how am I going to manage motivation? How am I going to engage with team members? How am I going to manage conflicts? How am I going to keep everybody at that performing level?
So clearly the soft skills of being able to actually lead and rather than just manage is super, super important. So In closing, what's the one key message or the one key takeaway you'd give to project managers watching this video today?
Yeah, look, it's a really good one. Teams don't magically appear. And that's the, no matter what happens, you get these people put together, you call yourself a project team. Don't assume that they're magically all of a sudden a team. Project managers need to invest in their team. And that's the key word I want people to take away from this, is that you need to invest your time as a project manager and possibly some of the project's funding and budget to develop up your team. Remembering that staff turnover and the cost of that is a huge hidden cost in projects, often never quantified, that we just wear. It's a huge hidden cost in projects. And if we can actually invest up front, we can negate some of those costs. We can decrease our staff turnover, and we can increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of our team. So key takeaway from this is to have project managers learn about the team development cycle so that they can put strategies in place to go through it. And there's plenty of material out there on the internet, and I'm not going to profess to be an expert at it. There's many very seasoned professors and doctors that have written very good articles about this cycle. So there's plenty of literature out there. But be prepared to invest. Invest your time. You might need to invest a bit of money in it as well, such as getting some coaches in, or independent facilitators, or funding maybe your team to go away for a day and do some workshop activities off-site. Just invest. That's the key thing.
Sean, thank you.
No worries.